Hi, welcome back to ABA-ish. I'm Dr. Billy Retzlaff, and this is a video that is focused on talking about when we have a preschooler who engages in unsafe behavior and how we should respond with low energy. Now, I did a similar video talking about toddler behavior, and in that I explained that when I'm talking about, age, it's not an exact science. Toddlers kind of is typically 1 to 3, and a preschooler would maybe be 3 to 5 typically, but it's really going to be about communication. At that preschool age, we are starting to see that ability to have some sort of back and forth communication. It's okay if that's not vocal, it might be through ASL or a device, but they're able to share a little bit more complex thoughts with you and engage in some back and forth conversation. A lot of their conversation is still probably egocentric, meaning that they're very focused on their own world, their own wants, their own needs, their own likes and dislikes, and that's okay. But they have a little bit of more of that ability to really share and help you understand what they're thinking and why, even if what they're thinking and why is not super rational because they're still just little kids. And similar to when we talked about toddler unsafe behavior, I always just want to remind people that for severe behavior, early intervention is critical. So if your kid is engaging in unsafe behavior like hitting or biting or kicking that is leaving marks on people, that is dangerous, that is harmful, please, please, please reach out for some support. If you don't know who to contact, your pediatrician or local school district are always a great starting area to get some resources. But I don't ever want somebody sitting there thinking, oh, this is normal, I don't need help, I don't need help. If it feels weird to you, if it feels off, if it feels out of control, reach out for help, see what supports are out there for you. And remember that for safety, close and active adult supervision is always our best proactive strategy. Watching our kids and making sure that we're jumping in quickly and often is how we can help make sure everybody stays safe. So, if we do get unsafe behavior from our preschoolers, so this might be things like hitting or kicking or biting, we want to start with a brief statement of no. I'm going to repeat a lot what I did in the toddler video just in case you only watch this video. But the reason I like to stick with a very brief statement is because it's very low energy. In reality, you don't always need to give a statement, but I find that it's really hard not to. And so it's better to have a really planned, thoughtful first statement. You can say no, you can tell them that it broke a rule, but make sure that it's very brief and very succinct and very clear. I really recommend that people kind of avoid using the term safe hands or gentle hands when their kid is engaging in unsafe behavior because it actually is this weird situation where you're pairing that word with an unsafe behavior. So if I'm going to say gentle hands to my kid, it's because they're actually using gentle hands. I'm actually describing what they're using, or proactively, I'm telling them to use gentle hands. So, like, my kid is coming up to a pet that they've gotten permission to pet. I might remind them, hey, let's use our gentle hands. When they're actually petting that pet so gently, I would say, hey, those are great gentle hands. I love how kind you're being to that pet. I bet it makes that pet feel really great. But I'm not saying it as they're hitting because then all they're connecting is this inappropriate hitting behavior with the phrase gentle hands. And so then later on, when I try to say, hey, use gentle hands, they may be a little bit confused and actually think that is hitting. So I personally am not a fan of gentle hands. When it comes to asking for an apology or to check on the targeted individual, I think that this preschool age is a time that's really challenging. People feel a lot more passionate, I think, about making sure that they get the kid to apologize or check on the targeted individual because they want that kid to learn to feel that empathy for somebody that they've injured. I do think this is a really easy to become a very high energy battle, especially because we know kids this age might say no, and then you're escalating, and it's like you become in this kind of control battle with the kid because they've said no, they don't want to apologize. You want them to apologize, and everybody keeps escalating and escalating. So for me right now with my preschooler, I will usually give her a choice of, do you want to go check on them to see if they're okay? And if she chooses to check on them and she chooses to apologize or those kind of things, I will give her some moderate energy. I'll tell her thank you for making that choice. I think it was really responsible that you took ownership of what you did. And back to kind of what I said in the toddler video, the other reason I don't force an apology is I just don't feel like it's that meaningful if the only reason my child is apologizing is because I'm telling them to. That's not really the purpose. That's not what I want to teach them. I want to teach them to feel their own reaction to a behavior and apologize when they really do feel sorry for it. So for me, it's a brief statement of no. I may provide that opportunity to check on the person if that's something that my kid chooses to do, but I don't push it. The next thing that I'm going to do, same with toddler behavior, is if needed, I'm going to physically interrupt the behavior. So again, this can almost be simultaneous with your no, but we're not sitting back and watching unsafe behavior. If unsafe behavior is happening, we as the adults are stepping in and redirecting it and interrupting it. So if the behavior stops, I might redirect my child then to a somewhat moderately preferred activity and give them low to moderate energy for engaging in that activity and then slowly start to ramp that up. So similar to what we talked about with the toddler, where we want to get them doing something appropriate and then provide our energy for that appropriate behavior. So you can do that with your preschooler as well. If they engage in the inappropriate behavior and you tell them no, you physically interrupt if needed, and then redirect them to something else. Now, if that behavior continues, you might redirect them to a required break. So, we need to proactively be teaching what these breaks look like with our kids. I'm going to get a video out all about teaching coping strategy and teaching appropriate breaks. So, just know that you really do, you have to make sure your kid understands what those breaks need to look like. They don't have to be super long. There's nothing about this whole like 1 minute for every year the kid is. So, if they're 4, they take a 4-minute break. There's nothing to that. And a lot of times it's honestly getting to know your kids. My daughter, she likes the longer break. She knows that about herself. Sometimes I'll come in to tell her her break can be done, and she will self choose to stay in her break a little bit longer. And so, there's no direct, like, this is exactly how long it should be. It kind of depends on your kid. But know that breaks as short as 30 seconds can be really effective even for preschoolers. So it doesn't have to be a long break, but kind of feel it out for your kids and what works best for them. Now, the other thing that you can do is there might be times that your preschooler breaks a rule and uses an unsafe behavior. You know that's a known rule. They know it's a rule. You've talked about it all the time. It's consistently a rule. You might want to skip number 3 of that redirection and go right into that required break. Have them pick a calming or coping strategy to use on their break and move on. That's okay too. I like having the redirection option so that if the behavior stops, I can quickly jump into giving high energy for something appropriate. But there are certain situations in which, we know this is a known rule. We talk about this as a house rule all the time. If you engage in that behavior, I am going to have you take a break right away. And this is one of those things that I think it's really important to try to be consistent among caregivers. And so having that conversation with whoever you also, co-parent or co-caregive with of what are you doing? Do you want to redirect, or are there certain things that we want to go straight to a required break for so that everyone can be on the same page? Now, just like anything, if we are seeing our kid engage in unsafe behavior, we don't want to wait for the behavior to happen to respond to it. We want to make sure that we're doing some things proactively to avoid those behaviors. So, the first thing we can do is give tons of free attention. And I'm not talking about that partial attention where you're kind of paying attention to your kid, but you're also really busy or trying to complete a chore, but trying to give as much of that really good, great attention as possible. Your kid knows that you're going to give them a reaction, hopefully a very low energy one, but some sort of reaction for inappropriate behavior. So we want to make it not worth their while. We want to let them kind of get that bucket filled up with attention on the first from positive things. So finding lots of great ways to give them that free attention is super important. One of the best ways that I found to help me with this is to include my kids in household activities because that's the time that my attention gets taken away the most. When I have to do laundry or the dishes or cook dinner, that's a time that it's really easy for me to stop paying attention to them and to really put all my energy to something else. Now all of a sudden they've engaged in unsafe behavior and boom, they get mom attention back. And that's really bad because now they're getting more energy for something unsafe. And so instead, I like to try to include them in those activities so I can give them lots of high energy positive attention throughout that activity. I will warn you, it does take a little bit longer to do some of those activities, so budget your time that way. But usually for me, it ends up overall taking less time because I don't have to be running back and forth playing referee. Now, we also can avoid unsafe behavior by teaching our kids positive things that they should be doing instead. I said this in the toddler video, but I'm going to say it again. I don't think it's worthwhile to spend time trying to teach all the things you don't want your kid to do. The list of things that I don't want you to do is endless. And even if I thought of the complete list, your kid would come up with something else. And so it's not really worthwhile to be teaching this endless list of what not to do. And instead, we want to focus on teaching them what to do. So, with preschoolers, one of those things is effective communication. So, using calming strategies to stay calm enough to tell people what they want and why they want it and help them understand. Something we've been working with my daughter on right now is teaching her what it means when we say we don't understand. So she kind of will like make up words sometimes. And then she'll be like, Mom, do you have whatever that word is? And I'm like, I don't know what that means. And she was getting really frustrated when I would tell her, I don't know what that means. And so instead, I've spent some time teaching her what that phrase really refers to. I'm like, I'm not trying to be like, I'm not trying to say no. I'm not trying to tell you you're wrong. I'm telling you I'm confused. I don't get it. What can you do when a mom's confused? You can say it in a different way. You could show me. You could draw it. And so we start talking through what are her options for when somebody doesn't understand her. Besides effective communication, the other things that I really work on teaching preschoolers is following redirection. So if I told you, no, you can't do that, but yes, you can have this, or let's go over and look at this thing, if they're accepting that and engaging, giving them tons of high energy for that. Teaching effective waiting. So making sure they have a signal or a phrase that you use to tell them when they need to wait, and giving them ideas of what they can do while they're waiting. You know, they can sing themselves a song, they could paint a picture or color a picture, like what options are in existence for them for when they're waiting. Expecting a kid to sit and wait quietly is not very realistic for preschoolers. So making sure we're giving them the skills of what can they do while they're waiting. I really like to teach trying on your own. So this has been a really big thing with my daughter lately of encouraging her to try something first before she brings it to one of us for help. It is really important that she can communicate when she needs help, but also that she can try on her own before getting a parent. Spending time teaching independent play is huge. Making sure they have something they can do to engage themselves and not kind of right away need your energy is critical as kids get older, as well as teaching calming strategies. So making sure you're taking intentional time to teach your kid how to self-regulate and how to calm. Again, I'm going to work on getting some videos up for you guys about those things as well, so be on the lookout for them. It's really important as a proactive strategy that we have a safe space for our kids, somewhere that they can be where they can interact autonomously with the environment. It's safe, it's appropriate for them, and that we also have engaging activities. So I talked about this in the toddler video too, but you can consider like rotating what those activities are so that they're more entertaining. Sometimes I go into houses or spaces and there's just like so many toys, but the kid isn't playing or engaging with any of them. And if we can parse that down and really have only a few toys out, you actually see that a lot of times the kids engage better. So make sure you're really thoughtful about how you set up the environment. You have those engaging activities that your kid loves and enjoys, and that you rotate through them in a way to make sure that they're kind of staying fresh and new. Couple other things that you can do is kind of hide some items until you really need them at those times that you need your kid to be more independently engaged. And then, consider kind of reaching out to other families to do a toy rotation, or sometimes even public libraries will have the ability to rent toys. And so looking into all those options so that you can kind of keep some sort of healthy rotation going on. So hopefully this was helpful for thinking about how to address your preschoolers' unsafe behavior. If you like this video, please subscribe and share. It means the world to me and to be able to keep this going. Thanks.